Weather good?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. No rain?
No rain. It doesn't rain there.
On the Amazon, there's some parts of the world I know nothing about. That's one of them.
Okay. You ready?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. Good morning. I'd like to call this meeting of the Cincinnati Board of Parks Commissioners to order. It's a beautiful day in Eden Park, and as you see, for those of you who have joined us, thank you. And for those who are looking on, we look a little bit like Crone Conservatory this morning. Beautiful poinsettias, and we thank staff for bringing these in today. It's a reminder, if you have not been to Crone Conservatory yet this season, please make your way there. It's an incredible show that Mark House and his staff have put together for Christmas, and it's beautiful. So it's open every day. So go on out and take the family and see Crone Conservatory. We're going to start today with some guest speakers. We have three, and we will give you 2 minutes each to speak. And Cynthia McCarthy, you're first. Thank you, Cynthia.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Cynthia McCarthy. I'm a 33 years environmental health specialist, retired from the City of Cincinnati Health Department and Waterworks. And I'm here to speak against the proposed dog park at Burnett Woods. And I have a couple questions for the Board of Commissioners. And the first question I have is about the turf that you have selected, the canine turf for the dog park. And I have some copies of a letter from a woman who's an environmentalist and a lawyer and now works for public employees to protect their safety. And so when I'm finished speaking, I'm going to hand out her words here. But our ask is that we have the turf sampled by an independent lab because there are thousands of PFAS chemicals and most of the turf manufacturers are only testing for a handful of them. So in order to be able to say it's PFAS free, we need to make sure that it's tested in the broadest sense. So our request is that that is done so that we can truly say that it's PFAS free, especially since working at the waterworks, that's one of the chemicals of concern at this point. It's very, very expensive to remediate from a water source. Then the other question I have is, have you received all of the comments from the various agencies that are opposed to the dog park? And I ask this because I looked at the raw data from the Dunor survey, and there were 366 people opposed to that site, and you decided that was enough to move on to a different site, which is down the Burnett Woods. But at this point, there are two different petitions against that site or against, with over 1,400 each of the two. And you have letters from the Audubon Society, from the Sierra Club, from the Hillside Trust, from numerous people who just really don't want to have the dog park at Burnett Woods for a variety of environmental reasons, health reasons, which we've all brought up before. But my two main asks are that this turf, this canine turf that you have selected in your design, be tested by an independent lab, and that the people opposed to this site at Burnett Woods be given the same consideration as those 366 people who were opposed to the Dunor site. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, refrain from
Thank you.
licking my finger to the papers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I think I am one short. I apologize for that. Hopefully.
We'll make a copy.
I appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
You know, and for clarity, that's a little misinformation from the standpoint of the survey that was done on Dunor. That survey response was not the basis for the selection of the park board by the park board of the dog park site in Burnett Woods. It was one of the criteria, but there were several. And as you all know, there were several sites that we looked at, one of which was Dunor and the others were around the Clifton area. And it was just one of the considerations when we looked at all of the factors. And that's why we chose the best site that we did at that time. But we appreciate your input and we appreciate your continued input. Next, we have Sherry Frost. Sherry, how are you? I thought it was Sherry Cartmill, but yeah, nice to see you.
That's my maiden name, Carmel. Hi, I have a new idea and I'm hoping that maybe it will help alleviate some of the tension in the community over the dog park and Burnett Woods. And I was so excited when I saw our new commissioner, Mr. Lee, talking about revitalizing the concession stands in our parks. And I had gone to the Burnett Woods Advisory Council with an idea to revitalize the plaza area in front of Trailside to make it a really unique, everybody's backyard. You know how we have everybody's treehouse in Mount Airy, and I thought, wouldn't it be amazing, instead of all this conflict in the community, if we could get together and come up with an idea to spend those funds that would include everybody and not just a handful of people that maybe don't have dogs or people that don't have yards, and make that front space a usable space for people of all abilities. I imagine areas where we could have plantings where people in wheelchairs can get their hands in the soil. I'm gonna cry because it's such an exciting idea to think about using those funds to help everybody and not just a select few. So I'm gonna stop talking so I don't cry.
Thank you, Sherry. And I'll remind you, we did have a plan and we did have plans to revitalize the plaza in front of the nature center. And we actually had an organization that was going to fund that. But many of the same people that are opposing the dog park opposed that at the time. So it's an unfortunate thing that we were not able to move forward with that project, but we appreciate your input. Thank you very much. And then we have Ann Oliver. Thanks, Ann.
Hi.
How are you?
Thank you, Cynthia and Sherry, for your remarks. Hello, board. First of all, I'm a board member of the Audubon Society of Ohio, and I am gonna cry. I wanted to thank the Cincinnati Parks for honoring one of my friends who worked for the parks, Lynette Orleman. She was one of your horticulturists. She was a long-term birder. She got me into birding almost 30 years ago. She died 6 months ago this weekend. And the park had a lovely event for her at Alms Park, which was one of her favorite parks. And there's a tree there and there's a bench there in her honor. And I just want to say thank you to all of you out there. And I was unable to attend her party because I was out of the country, but I heard it was really lovely. But I'm here, of course, about birds. And Burnett Woods has the one and only important bird area in Hamilton County that is entirely in Hamilton County. What is an important bird area? It is something that was started by BirdLife International. And then BirdLife International started in Europe, brought to the United States a couple decades ago. It is a huge honor to have that in one of your parks. I'd love to see it celebrated. I'd love to see it honored. And I know that you're going to have, our board participates in the 124th Annual National Audubon Society Christmas Bird Count. There's a little error in the notes that I saw online. It's called the Audubon Christmas on the notes, but it's the National Audubon Society Christmas Bird Count that's happening in the parks. It's a wonderful tradition. And of course, I'm not against dogs. I do think the dog park is ill-conceived where it is. And the whole park is a dog park for people that have dogs on leashes. And thank you all for continuing to listen to multiple people. And hopefully you'll find a way to honor the IBA, the important bird area. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ann. And again, thank you all of you who have come to the meeting today and listening to us. We're going to move now into our agenda. And the first thing that we have is approval of the November 16 minutes. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to review them. Kelly has done an excellent job again on recording our actions at the last meeting. Are there any additions, corrections, changes? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Mr. Castellini, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner McCollum. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. All right, we have some informational updates, and first we have Joel Gross from Planning and Design. Good morning, Joel. How are you?
How are you all?
Morning.
Happy holidays and Merry Christmas to you all.
Thank you.
I think the first two updates are also my action items for this month. So first one I have for you all today. Oh, actually, I have a staffing update and just a thank you really to Derek and his team for helping us. We have two administrative positions, one project manager and an administrative specialist positions out still to help us kind of coordinate more of the day-to-day stuff that we do and coordinate with project managers. So they've been awesome helping us. I think we had a lot of applicants for the PM and Derek's working through those right now. So we hope to add those folks to our staff early next year. Thanks to his team for all the work. Into my action items. We have the first is the Avon Woods replacement. This is just a very old leaking facility. We've been talking about this for 6 months and trying to get quotes for it. The roof and several of the flashing areas are leaking so bad that if we don't do something about it soon, it's going to continue to cause more degradation and cost us way more money in the future. So Chris has put together with the help of Imbus Roofing, a package to reflash, re-roof with a 50-year EPDM roof, the entire building, fix all of the rotted wood under the flashing. All of those things will be completed under this project. We're doing this under our roof term contract, so Imbus can do that under the terms they've already established with the city, very much like we do our concrete stuff. Lita, their quote was $64,455. We're going to take that from 232,000. Planning and design is recommending award of this project to Imbus Roofing. And
I think with your agreement, let's take these as Joel goes through them in case there's questions. So this is our action item, letter A, Avon Woods roof replacement. And Joel, again, what is the bottom line ask that you're asking us?
$64,455.
And that is part of the annual capital budget.
Yes, sir. From 232,000, we're still using fiscal year 23 infrastructure rehabilitation funds for that. There's about $800,000, I believe, in there last we checked, which is a week or so ago, in uncommitted money in that fund before we even get into 242,000, which is the fiscal year that we're actually in. So
Great.
we're utilizing those funds for that. We didn't add any additional contingency. Having worked with Imbus several times in the past 2 years that I've been here, they do that internally. We have a great working relationship with them, so I didn't feel it necessary to commit any additional funds for that.
Great.
We're asking for a recommendation, or we're asking for approval to complete that work in the amount of $64,455.
So this is budget money is there for this. This is to approve because it's over 50,000 threshold that comes to the board. Are there any questions for Joel? So you said this was how many year guarantee warranty on this?
50-year warranty.
Warranty.
We're actually not putting shingles back. It is a 50-year EPDM, which I won't even pretend to know what that is, but Chris McGee does know what it is.
Okay.
It says that's the best you can do with it. We shouldn't have to deal with any of this. One of the reasons is you're covered with a whole lot of vegetation, which degrades shingle roofs pretty quickly, and this apparently does a whole lot better on those.
Great. Great. So we have a request from staff approved for 67,000. Any other questions I'll entertain a motion then.
So moved.
Vice President North moves. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and second to approve the staff request for the expenditure of 67 as part of our annual capital budget against for a roof. Avon. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Joel.
Thank you, commissioners. My second action item, excuse me, is the Mount Airy speed humps on Blue Spruce Road. We've been working through this project for a few months. Essentially, when people get off into the park on Colerain Avenue, they use that as a cut through all the way down to Shepherd Creek. I've watched several times myself as moms get their kids out of their car and are trying to walk across into the fields from the parking areas along that road. People speed down that hill at 45 plus miles per hour. The objective of this is to put speed bumps in places that essentially don't cause our maintenance folks any additional heartaches. Some of the ones that you're seeing that they've tried on Reading Road and things like that, I feel like the plows are going to have a real problem with this winter. So we went to DOTE early and asked them, what should we do to minimize any of that plowing issues that we have inside of our park? We maintain that road. They came up with something that's sanctioned, but through It allows for a more gentle roll, which still slows people down, but doesn't catch the plow and lets that stuff, so we're not going to tear them up every single year and have to replace them. So as you can see in the exhibit, we've placed them essentially right after the Arboretum Drive, and then additionally right before on the downhill side of every single parking area, so that people have to come to a less than 15 miles an hour essentially to cross those, not being able to get speed again before you're hopefully aware of a child that you're going to hit. So
And Joel, the funding for this is from,
same place. This would come out of 232,000, that infrastructure and rehabilitation. We still have about, like I said, $800,000 free in that as of last year. This is a project, like I said, we've been working on for a few months, but bringing before you all now for your
Great.
recommendation. For your,
any questions? Go ahead.
it's a very important step. The total with this, and we added a $2,000 internal contingency for any additional road work they encountered or a pothole or something. We'll ask is $59,400. Includes $2,000 in contingency.
And then again, this is approving the allocation of existing budget money to go ahead and cover this because it's over $50,000.
Yes, Mr.
Any other questions?
Yeah, why is there only 6?
That's about all you can put. That's all you need really. By the time you get past the Arboretum Drive, which is I look at it from a traffic engineering standpoint, people are going to slow down to go to the Arboretum Drive. So we have one directly after that. And then essentially we're placing one right before every parking area.
That's okay. That's what I was trying to.
And
figure out, yeah.
And you can see, even if you look at the exhibit, that they're pretty evenly spaced going down through there. So you're kind of doing two things at once. You're keeping people slow throughout the whole thing, but also protecting right in front of those parking areas on the downhill side, which is where people tend to let off their, you're going down that hill towards Shepherd Creek. You could just essentially just coast and be 20 miles an hour. So not really blaming anybody, but sometimes we got to put some controls in there to ensure that we're not going to let our children get hurt. They're crossing the street over there. So.
This is a great example of safety in our parks, and appreciate you guys looking at ways to ensure or help ensure safety for the people in the parks. Any other questions for Joel on this one? So we have a request for approval of a $9,000 expenditure for the speed humps on Blue Spruce. I'll entertain a motion.
So,
Commissioner Lee and Vice President North. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you, Commissioners. Much appreciated. Those are the only action items I have on the report, but I do have a few more updates on some of the bigger things. The first one on my list is talking through a little bit of Sinton Garage. I know last time we met, I just received additional quotations the night before and had I believe, old paper shown in there. So we just want to bring this back before you. We're kind of at a design stopping point. We know pretty much now that we're done with schematic design. It's been through 2 rounds of estimation by professionals in all of these fields, and we're pretty confident that these are going to be the numbers and kind of the breakdowns moving forward. So I believe we're not asking for action. We're just providing an update today to tell you we believe that this is how we think we should proceed with this project. From this point forward, we recommend moving forward with design towards construction plans in all of the areas that you see laid out before you in this plan. But not knowing how much funding we're going to have and knowing only that we have essentially $2.2 million allocated towards this project, as Jason will get into later, we recommend keeping the base budget for everything to do with the building. And that's kind of what we're bringing before you today, showing you that in essentially 3 more months, as our consultant has those construction drawings done, we're going to be coming back to you all for approval probably of a almost $3 million project at one time. As Jason will also say, we've asked the city for additional funds to make up any gap that we have, but it's imperative that you all buy in, knowing that we're moving forward with trying to get the site, the buildings designed, as we have money to do those already under contract, but we're laying this out in essentially, I think what Chris said, 8 different bid packages such that we can be nimble and try to utilize our existing term contracts as much as possible, or the plans will be coherent enough to where we can package 3 of those items together and do it under one. So we're essentially bringing this forward to acknowledge how much we think this project is going to cost today, get buy-in from you all, or discussion from you all on any pitfalls you may see coming or any things you want to discuss or issues or concerns that you have with this. But we think it's going to be a $3 million project, hopefully trying to be built late next year. And all we're gonna try to do at one time is the inside, outside, everything to do with that building, just so we're not breaking that construction apart. We can probably piece out the site design or the site components later if we need to. That's another $500,000, as you see in your sheet here. So those kind of things all depend on how much funding we have available at the time, but we want to at least get buy-in from you all on the plan that we're going to commit this kind of capital to Sinton.
Gotcha.
This is similar to what we did with Ludlow, where what we're gonna do is get the plans drawn up and then we'll be able to be as nimble as we want to be. As we'll talk about when we get to the capital budget request for next year. If we use our infrastructure rehabilitation money as we've got it planned out right now, and again, we'll approve that today, which then gets into the city budget process. That's not actually approved until June. And we still have a lot to learn about how that allocation will be affected by the sale of the railroad and the end of the former lease and the payments and all that. The city's still working through a lot of that. So it's a little bit less structured than it has been in the past. But we still need to submit that on their timeline, which is before Christmas. So they can kind of, because they have to get that ready, they have to get the operating budget ready, and then they've got to, of course, let the city manager, the mayor and council have their fun with it. We have money set aside in the infrastructure rehabilitation budget, and then it's also our number one exemption project that we're proposing. In some preliminary conversations with the city, it does sound like they're going to have some money for some exemption projects. So it's our hope that in June, they will approve adequate funding to get this project off the ground. The way Joel and Chris have laid this out, we have between now and then to look at what are the plans, what do we need to have? And then if money doesn't come back from council, we can either wait until we find it, or we can look at other funds that we might have available now that we can maybe redirect some funds if we want to move forward.
Jason, is there any talk about getting city council to the site so they see the disaster?
There absolutely is. In fact, I was just on the city manager's office recently about getting that whole team out there so they can see what it looks like. Because again, they're the first step of it. And I've actually already had a couple of city council people out there. So because as you guys saw when we toured it, it's pretty self-explanatory, the need for that improvement and what our employees are dealing with. And so it's really exciting. And you guys have seen some of the preliminary plans, they're in here, but it's going to be a world-class facility when we're done with it. It's going to be something we're going to be really proud to operate out of. And it's going to help us make all of our parks better, help us recruit, retain employees, and just keep them safe while they're working. So
We're listening too. When we talked, Molly, I remember you asked a specific question on site. Why don't we just bulldoze it potentially? Not saying you're against preservation whatsoever, but why would we go through all this to put this together versus a new building? We're still, we believe, going to save $200 or $300 a square feet in doing that and preserving one of these buildings that has some architecture that's famous for this area, I guess, for a storage garage. So I think it's the right thing to do with this. I'm the same. It's like, why would we go through all the unknowns and go through all that? I believe this is cooked to the point where all of the major pitfalls have been dealt with within this schematic design. So we're not going to come back for an additional, unknown 6 months from now.
So what's the plan to bid this out?
Bid everything that you see under section 2, other than 2E, which is the alternate garage canopy. What's that?
This has not been bid. This is an estimate.
So
We're gonna bid this out to contractors.
Yes, absolutely. Yes,
So
ma'am.
this is not gonna go under any kind of master agreement. It may, if the winning bid is with the contractor that has a master agreement.
Ludlow was the biggest job they allowed us to do under the TPA. They asked for that specifically. It 100% fits the criteria the same way Ludlow does, in that we are just doing renovation and deferred maintenance of existing facilities. We could very much ask them to do this under the TPA.
I don't support that.
yeah,
Understand?
the reason we had to do it for that one was because of the timeline.
Timeline.
Reading Road 2, we had been backed up because coming into the project late. NIAF, we had to get an extension. Remember from last April, we were supposed to be out of there this April. We got an extension to January 1 of this year, and we're still going to go over that by a little bit because we're waiting for moving companies. But we needed that specifically for that speed issue. That was the way we could get that done. With this one, assuming the budget process goes well in June and we are able to identify enough funding for it, we'll then make the decision to bid it out in July, which would then go through the normal bidding process to get the lowest and best.
Good.
Or best of whichever we want to prioritize, but we'd be able to select the contractor that we feel best for this project.
Well, I know that I'd say for the most part, everything that you're bidding here is at a lower price than it was at the beginning of the year currently. So things are trending in the right direction.
Yes, ma'am. Very good point. And I was going to say that as well. A year and a half ago in Ludlow, everybody wouldn't even call us back. You know, there was so much stuff going on, and now we feel that market shifting and we have a little bit more control on our end. Certainly, we're going to bid this out and not just throw away the 10%, just to get things. We will do that sometimes, as you know, when it's impossible to get a contractor to do certain things. We call on those guys and they've helped us a lot. But we totally understand for jobs of this magnitude, we're always going to tend towards trying to invitation to bid every single time.
Excellent.
Thank you.
What do you think the start date for construction is on this? I know we've got our schedule here.
Well, I could tell you from two
It says,
Yeah.
from two different perspectives, I would say that knowing now that even in the end of fiscal year, calendar year 23, we don't have fiscal year 24 money available within our accounts yet. The financial piece of that gives me concern that those monies will not be available. Obviously, there's some time between now and then, and we're coming to the right folks today to get commitment on how to make that whole. From a plan standpoint and from being ready, consultant that we use on this project is very thorough. I feel like their SD plans are better than most people's, and they're going to go to CDs pretty quick, is what I think on this. So we would target a spring bid on this to be ready and have that whole process moving. The problem with that is we can't do that until monies are secured in the account. So essentially, as soon after July 1 that we can bid this out, we're ready to bid it. That's for sure. Is anything?
I mean, the hope is, I believe it's on the schedule. The hope is we could do a Q3, Q4. Q3 would be bidding and Q4 of this year would be starting construction.
well, that's what the schedule says, so.
Yeah. And Joel, when you do that bidding process, you'll use some of these other items as a add-on potential?
Totally depends on where everything comes back. We would, kind of why I laid this out is we know we want to keep certain things together. The interior renovation, exterior wall panel system, the doors and the roof all need to be done in one package because that's something we can package correctly.
But like the canopy.
The canopy could be an extra and we wanted to keep our base bid as small as possible. We'd love to get that done too. But I'm trying to keep us as nimble as possible in that base bid, getting the east side team what they need to move in and out. And then as monies come available or we get other funding sources, a la carte, pull those out, very much like we're doing the storage building, fencing and stuff at Ludlow.
So a year ago, when we were talking about Ludlow, Joel and I were less than a year into our employment, and we didn't know kind of where we was at. This is what we hope to be on all projects, which is we're 6 months out. Ask us questions. Let's talk about it. Talk about it again in March and in April. And what I would say, knowing what I know now, the hope is to be able to do almost all of this, except for the only one that I think we still got some work to do, the metal extra building, whether or not we need that or whether we want that in a different location. But I think our hope is we're able to secure enough funding to do the interior package, to do the site package. We think that awning will be really valuable from an operational standpoint to keep vehicles out of the weather outside, but not necessarily in the elements. Also to store like any sort of mulch or anything they need to store closer to the facility. And we're also hopeful that we can establish enough funding to do the solar panels because we think that's an important project, you know. It's important when we put the solar panels in here a decade and a half ago. There are already solar panels on Sinton, but obviously solar panel technology has come a long way. And so we think that that's the right, and by that time, we will have done more math on what do we think we can get out of these? How much power do they provide? What is our annual energy cost at Sinton? How quickly would we start to see a return? But our hope is we can do all of it. But again, we have lots of time for those discussions and to talk to city council, city manager's office. But we're trying to kind of have this stuff, these conversations way in advance so that we've had 4 or 5 of them by the time we get to July. And it's like,
Great.
excitement builds, right?
Exactly.
As we all wait for our deliveries from Santa.
Well, again, it's important that we provide our employees with a clean, safe, welcoming environment. So this is clearly, as we've each seen now, this is a facility that needs some love and care and upgrade. Any other questions at this point? There's no action on this, just questions that you might have. It's very important.
You're very welcome. 2 things. You notice in this one that you don't have a contingency column. We confirmed with Lynn at KZF that those folks that have been doing those estimates added about a 15 to 20% contingency in all of their things that they showed us. So it didn't really change the numbers because we were doing that and then they came back with 10 to 15% higher than it was. as they got bids back. But just to let you all know, that's why those numbers change. One more priority item beyond that base bid, I would say that the perimeter fence and site improvement, which includes moving the mulch and all that, which frees up a whole lot of area for parking in the front. That would be the next priority after this base bid in my mind. So
Great.
thank you all for the discussion.
Yeah.
All right, 2 updates on projects that are finally about to get done, we think. The first one is the Ludlow facility. The invitation to bid is in its second round for the building. That's the big news, I guess, today. That is due at the end of the day. So by potentially the end of tomorrow, purchasing should be able to get back with us those numbers, what that storage building should cost. We anticipate 2 or 3 bids on this. We hope we get decent numbers. That's the last, final piece to get Ludlow where it needs to be. Beyond that, Chris told me this morning that we will have an occupancy permit tomorrow. So
Wow.
everything is a go as of tomorrow. Electrical is passed, water finally is passed, everything is good. Valve was fixed that we told you all about last month. All of that has been done. So everything is moving forward and we have everything in place. They cleaned. Andrew and I were down there Monday, checking everything and looking at final things. They were actually switching a plug around for us. So we have room, 3 more inches to put a little bit bigger fridge upstairs. So they're down to the nitty gritty on those. And everything is going smooth. Everything looks great.
I believe furniture is delivered next week, early next week. And then Crystal has a moving company set for early January. So that's why we're gonna take a little bit more time in our soon to be abandoned Reading Road facility. But the team's really excited about moving in and we've had them through there a couple times for tours.
Are you aware, has the sale occurred yet on that property?
I have been in contact with the city manager's office. I don't believe the sale's been finalized yet, but the last we heard about it, both the city manager's office and us, was folks from the federal government talking about it in a business career article. So then I contacted the city manager's office and she contacted them. And so they're finalizing that, but they were working through, my understanding was they were working through some utility coordination issues. Since it's a parceled site that they're combining, there are some utilities that'll have to get moved. And so as always, you have to decide who's in charge of paying for that. And I'm sure the federal government and Duke Energy are having a robust conversation.
I just want to commend you all, Jason, your leadership on this and Joel for getting it done. That we're ahead of the game. Yeah, we're where we need to be to make sure our staff gets into a place that they can work in.
I believe,
Schedule.
and Rocky can stop me if I'm ahead of myself, but I believe we've set February 16th for a ribbon cutting on it. So that'll give Crystal's team some time to settle in. But that is a Friday. I believe it'll be after the board meeting in February. If I'm doing my math on 15 means there's 3 Thursdays. So
Well, it's
the week before, but
from what we see from the outside, it's a very nice looking building and the work that's gone into it. Again, congratulations on doing this and getting it done. And Crystal, enjoy your new setting there. Yeah. Any questions for Joel on Ludlow?
Thank you for the support. And it means a lot. This sentence, those are hard projects to swallow when we come and ask for $3 million at a time to fix stuff, but every experience I've ever had says, take care of your people take care of everything else. So we're getting there and hopefully that
Great.
moves the park system exponentially. Thank you all. Next one I have is another project that's the main completion is almost done, but we're still waiting on some Forest Street stuff. So Lytle Park, the main project is almost complete. Trees have been planted since the last update. We were almost there, I believe, last time we met. All of that, I believe, is looking really, really good. Sod was installed in the beginning of November and they kept that watered for 4 weeks until they had to winterize the system about a week and a half ago. So that also is looking really, really good in my opinion. So folks are down there doing polish work in several different areas to the fountain, sensors, electrical. They had to put in a 240 amp shutoff the very last minute, which added a panel on the inside of the comfort station. So they're working through those logistics and making sure we don't run conduit on the outside of our historic buildings, working through some of those kind of issues. Lou and his team are crushing it, planting right behind everything as it gets done. Half of the Taft half of the park, most of that, even the bulbs and mulch are already planted. They were out there late last week. I saw maybe it was even early this week mulching out there. So park's starting to look great.
they had a really great volunteer event last Friday that Jenny and I stopped by. And there were some people from Park Place at Lytle. There were some people from the Taft Museum. There were some people from even our friends at Mad Tree who just show up at everything, they had some folks down there that were helping to take mulch around and do it. So it's a really good turnout. Folks are really embracing it.
It looks beautiful. And unless you keep an eye on it, so it
Right.
looks, yeah. It looks nice.
Very pleased.
Anything else, Joel?
Not on that one. Thank you all. A couple more just updates on projects that we got done. The next one on my list, I think, missed this page. Some of them, most of them are the water main on Alms and Alt Park. So first pictures I have next in mine are the Alms sinkhole repair. You can see in my slides, the pictures that we have there. This is the picture of the excavators we dug in below essentially the overlook at Alms Park. You can see from the surface there, very much like Washington Park. Doesn't look like a big deal. He's got one hole in there.
Yeah.
Kelly, if you go to the other picture, that's one scoop later.
Wow.
What you're looking at is 6 feet down, and then essentially from the street all the way down, there was a cave in just below the surface, following the slope,
Hiding in plain sight.
hiding in plain sight. So this has been works a long time. You all approved this project 6 months ago, probably, but Rack and Ballard came in and did a phenomenal job here. I saw this, I came in, kind of looked at everything, instructed them to scratch out in every direction until we found where those holes terminated. They did that laterally with the slope, and then longitudinally down where the water comes out was in fact what we thought. It was just subsurface water. You get these gopher holes essentially is how they start. And then after a year or two, they just continue to get bigger. Before you know it, they're 6 inches. A lot of water happens underground with 6 inches. It's just spreading out that we can't see. And eventually you get to the place where the guy hits a gopher hole with a mower and you look down and there's 15 feet below you. So I take these very, very seriously as a civil engineer. It's all fixed. Kelly, if you go to the next one, I think there's, yep, there you go. So that's showing what happened afterwards. That is that slope now. You can see where they scratched everything else and put a fiber mulch blanket back down on top of that so we don't have any erosion. Big riprap in both areas, and you can see down below now we have a dam at the bottom of that, so there is nowhere for that subsurface to go. That cuts those off. There will be more of these at Alms Park for sure because this park's on a slope, but that's in my mind the most effective way to do these. You could spend 3 times as much doing concrete, but they're going to wear out and wash out at exactly the same rate. So these are easier for us to keep an eye on, so things fail slowly instead of all at one time, and we get people hurt. So just want to give you all an update on that. Thanks for funding it. It saved a safety concern for sure for a lot of us. Couple more updates, I guess, at Alms and Alts, just talking about the sanitary sewer and the water services. I bet, Kelly, I'm out of order for some reason. I'm
No worries.
missing my page 2, and I don't know how that is. Page 3. So this is just an update on a project we've been working on since March. Essentially, since we use a different kind of pipe, we had to get approval from the EPA to do this. That allowed us to directional drill this and go deeper than we would normally be allowed to do with PVC. So you all have heard about this project before, certainly. Finally, we have all the approvals that we need, and JT Lore, our directional driller, put the rest of this run in the past couple weeks here. So waiting 2 utility access holes that had to be added to the project, as you can see, to tie in on both ends and gain access to the upper end of this. Those are due to be in on the 18th of December. So those will likely be installed before the end of the year. So that project should be wrapping up, if not the end of this year, certainly early next year. Been talking to Dave, Andy, and their teams about getting the interior, the comfort station ready to go so that as soon as the spring season hits, that one will be open for business for the first time, I believe. And so finally, those issues are going to be cleaned up. The water service, in conjunction, the same company has that same bid. So they're going to continue on site and directional drill that new service from the comfort station and feed the water fountain that's up above near the lookout. That is what you're seeing on your screen right now. That project, I believe the line is already installed, but the ends have not been tied in yet on either end to the comfort station. They're going to do that as they finish the sanitary sewer. So functionality of all those utilities at Alms will be fixed by the spring and should be a great place to have a picnic. Alt Park, Kelly had the pictures of the roof on there next, I believe. Yep. So this is phase 2 of a project that, again, Embus Company is doing for us. You can see right now, they have all the old membrane off and all that heavy insulation. What happened to this, on top of what you see right now, there was pavers and insulation under that. As rain got under that, that insulation became saturated and then was 3 times as heavy as it normally should be, which causes a whole lot of weight to that roof and cracking and degradation to the structure. So as you can see, these are progress shots. Imbus has all of that stuff off. This is the old flashing. You can see they're being really clean with what they're doing, not tearing up anything underneath, but getting all that old insulation out, assessing the flashing that they have now. And then they'll start putting back brand new insulation, which will not fill up with water again, and replace as few pavers as necessary to put back the historic pavers right on top. So that project is in progress. It'll continue for the next few weeks. But they're doing a great job so far.
Joel, what's the hole?
That was a drain, Susie. I'm not sure exactly what, but that's,
Is it still functioning?
oh, yeah, absolutely. So they've got it right now. You can see he's got it. So just that mesh around it won't let any silt or debris, basically
Yeah.
just like a sanitary. But my guess is that it's a low point drain and that's a roof drain right off of there. They'll flash it all back, but even now, as you can see, that's what I was talking about, him being clean. Even in his temporary state, he's got that mesh around it. So even the dust that he has that's going into there is negated from that hole while he's working. So that is a roof drain. They'll cap it all back on top and then grade it so that nothing, no leaves or silt gets on it.
Placing.
Mhm. Yeah, instead of, they don't want any exposed gutters or anything on the outside of those historic buildings. It's something like this, and all of that ran interiorly. Water is a lot the same way. We were chasing sanitary pipes where we thought they were just, bathrooms, they were roof drains. So stuff is cool to work on and learn how all that stuff works. So alt is in progress. This was about a week ago. Andrew got me those pictures, so they're even farther than this by now. But all of that's looking really, really good. Should take a whole lot of weight off of that roof and
Yeah.
make some of the interior stuff. It'll actually help us with our moisture problems on the inside because as everything, heats up in the summertime, that condensates on the inside of that roof. That is what I have for Alt Park. I believe the next one I have is Washington Park. Is that correct? Oh. That is one more piece of alms, just so you guys are aware. Is that alms? Yep. Okay, so another project that we have completed in this past month, Alt Park Water Main.
Water service.
Yes, ma'am. So from the back of the pavilion all the way down to the 2 service buildings, you're looking right now at a submerged new vault that's going to go in there to house your meter and a whole bunch of those. We've had a lot of issues with this project, but worked through a lot of them. The infrastructure was so old outside of our vault and what we put in here that the valve right beyond that blew, and then another valve even 200 feet beyond that blew when they tried to work those. So Matt Schiller from my office has done an awesome job communicating with Waterworks and the contractor to make sure that we've kept moving on this. As of early this week, all of the infrastructure was back in place. That vault is set, and they were working to ensure that the final valve was fixed to the point where we could energize this. But the first time in 3 years, you'll be able to run the fountains and the comfort station, the pavilion at the same time. So we're very happy about that. 2 things are also happening at French Park in conjunction with the same contract. A couple months ago, we brought to you all the culvert fix. The water main is a part of this same contract that we're looking at with Alt. So right now, Rack and Baller is on site fixing the French Park culvert. And then in the next couple weeks, JT Laura will be right behind them with Queen City Mechanical, run a new water line at French as well. That will go to the new house, restore all of that. And then this contract will be complete. So French Park, 2 things happening there in conjunction with the same contract.
Deferred maintenance happening everywhere.
Yeah.
They can get everything.
Wherever you want to go, Joel.
I want to go to Washington Park sinkhole. My bad, Kelly. I'm missing one page does here.
There.
It's an update for you on this. Last month, we came to this and asked you all for approval on this project. Essentially, as of Friday, tomorrow, we expect a DO for this. So we expect Zach and Ballard to be in here fixing this sinkhole in the next week. I'm going to coordinate this afternoon with Andy to ensure that the bench that's right in front of there gets taken out. But as you can see, Andrew's got in the blue cyan square right below there, that's where we think we're going to access with an excavator. Go and dig that hole out, make sure, very much like we did at Alms, we found where it was leaking, whether that be the infiltration into the pipe or something subsurface that we don't expect. We're gonna fix the leak, find out where it was, fill it all back and compact it properly. Just want to let you all know that we expect that work's gonna still happen by the end of this year. Now that unfortunately, the playoffs are over for the FC Cincinnati. You can go ahead and do that work in this park, so waiting on money, but we shouldn't be very much longer. Next slide, please.
Yeah.
All right, I don't even have any of those on there. Let me see. The only other updates I had for you all was the Mount Airy Stone signage repairs that I think I was gonna talk about.
Okay.
You had that too.
Yep.
Yep. So we've been working on this for a while. As you can see on this page, two different instances that I believe happened within a month of each other. Somebody smashed into both of these historic signs.
Yeah.
So Andrew's put together this package here through one of our term masonry contracts that we utilize under TPA, Howard Masonry. They've given us bids to replace these in kind. They are doing most of our historic stonework around the parks. Andrew's put back together what they need to do. Drew has already visited the site, and we know we have additional attic stock of this limestone that we saved from Bellevue. If you all remember that, when we took the rocks out of Bellevue, we're going to use some of that stone to fix some of these. So we actually have stone that matches this, but pretty intricate work for the old signage. We want to keep homage to those existing feel of the park. So this will go back essentially exactly as it was, even with the old historic signs. But just wanted to make you all aware that this is essentially what we're moving forward with here. It's not an action item. I don't even think we have quotations yet, but we anticipate that we're going to have them pretty soon.
But that was strictly vandalism, wasn't it?
Well, accidents, yes, ma'am.
With a car.
That couldn't have been a car.
Oh, yeah.
That top one? Where,
It's right on Colerain Avenue.
I suppose.
It amazes me too. The one at what's the one up by Incline Public House?
Olden View.
Golden View, that amazed me. The one running down the stairs like after the curve. So after that, this one doesn't faze me.
If I'm not mistaken, you've cleaned this up. Initially, it looked like it had been hit for a number of weeks, but now it looks pretty clean, even though the sign's not back at Mount Airy. Good.
So I believe that's all the informational updates. Do you all have any questions? Anything else I had in the report that I didn't specifically bring out or cover?
Again, just Joel's team is knocking it out, coordinating with Jenny's team, both in operations and facilities maintenance, taking care of stuff all over the park. So,
A lot of things get publicity, new things and flashy things get a lot of publicity, but the work that you're doing is really necessary. And even though it may not get newspaper attraction, it's really taking care of our parks for the future, and you really are knocking it out. Just the amount of work that's been going on is just incredible.
Thank you very much. Appreciate all of you.
I have a couple questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's see. We don't have to talk about it today, but I just want to tee it up for discussion, maybe for the next meeting or a future meeting. The updates on biochar. I would like to understand what needs to happen. Some of the macro items between now and getting this project started, because
I can-
it's been out there for a while. Hang on, let me get
Sorry.
some questions and then I'll turn it back over. And then I want to know what this underground storage tank is. Is that an order? And it says that it can continue to remain in use. And I want to know what is in that tank.
Yes, ma'am. I can talk about both of those today.
I have two other questions.
Okay, my bad.
No, it's okay. I do want to talk about the marina in more depth than we've talked about it in these meetings. Because and I'm sure other commissioners regularly get questions, when are we going to have a boat dock? And we want to be able to say to the boating community, here's when we're going to have a boat dock. That can be based on some assumptions, but right now I don't think we can say we're going to have it for boating season 2024. And I don't know if we can say we'll have it for 2025. Or what needs to happen in order to have one for 2025. I think when I came on the board 3 years ago, it felt like this was we were
Ready to go.
ready to go.
Right.
And here we are 3 years later, and a lot has happened in that 3 year period, and the setbacks could not have been forecasted because there were so many dynamics shifting in construction costs, et cetera, the permit. But I do want us to have a clear understanding of the things that need to occur for that to happen. And so we can support you in that if support is needed. And again, so that we can represent to the community when this really important asset is going to be available for use. And then the third, our favorite topic, the dog park. Well, I know there was a survey put out. Thank you for that. I do just want to say, I think the design is absolutely terrific and also was very responsive to feedback that we have heard. There's been a lot of feedback. Much has been very valuable and all is welcome, of course. So when will we see any design modifications in response to that feedback? And I think those are my questions. Questions?
We can go in reverse order.
Okay,
So the survey about the latest kind of like final-ish draft of the design closes tomorrow. We've had about 850 responses so far.
we have.
And so Rocky and his team will be going through those over the weekend and early next week. It's also gotten a lot of discussion online. In fact, I was going to save it for my my director's comments, but we've had between Instagram and Facebook, we've had 45,000 impressions, which is a huge number, and we've had almost 9,500 engagements, right? So engagements are actually people participating, people talking about it, people being involved in it. And then on Instagram, we've had almost 1,300 likes. So maybe not people that are taking time to write something, but people that are scrolling past it and that are excited to see it and are giving it that, to the extent that that is a vote, that are giving it that like. Obviously, some of the people that came in and talked, there are other people that have opinions about it, but we're at least excited to get a lot of feedback about it and a lot of conversation about it and a lot of engagement. As for the timing of it, our hope is to get through those survey responses. And as you saw, the survey is much more simple. It's not because we're at the final stages. It's like, what suggestions do you have to make it better? We're hoping to post those sometime kind of over this holiday break or early in January, so everybody can see what the responses were. And then we'll try to pull out any kind of final thoughts that people have. Human Nature, the design team, is finishing up the construction drawings right now, and those will be ready in hand soon. Preliminary estimates we've seen that they've still got a little bit of fundraising to do. And so the team, once we launched that 2 Fridays ago, I think the fundraising effort went into full effect. I'm pretty sure the foundation is going to launch a push in January, I think, to kind of close that out. And then we're hoping that fundraising will close out kind of first quarter and we'll be able to proceed with this in springtime.
Great, thank you.
And then the second one is the marina. Another one that had been percolating when Joel and I came on board. Where we're at right now, and Jenny's been working with the engineering firm that's working with Hafner and Sons to get all the information to the Army Corps. And the necessary permits and what was needed from a permit perspective, I don't know that any of us fully understood it during the bidding process. And so what we needed was plans and then a permit for those plans. And so right now we're at a point where that is posted online for comment. It's a 30-day comment period, which should close early January. What I don't think we have a full understanding of yet, but we're going to try to find out more from the Army Corps, is how long is it from comments being finished, permit being issued. Once the permit's issued, that will allow us to enter into kind of negotiations over what that partnership agreement will be, and for the vendor, Hafner and Sons, to go out and get actual quotes. What we found was that we were trying to go down all these paths at the same time, and it became apparent that you can't, it's like going to buy a car. You can't say, how much is a car? I'm going to buy it in 3 years when I get a permit. And so you have to kind of have the permit to then go out and get bids that you can rely on in order to bring a full construction budget to us for us to negotiate the terms of the contract. So once the comment period closes, there'll be some period until the permit is issued. We need to find more clarity on how long that gap is, and we'll try to have that for you as soon as we
Yeah,
can.
you can estimate a date. It won't be the date, but.
Exactly. And so then once we have that permit, that's when things will really ramp up, and we'll be negotiating. We'll be figuring out what that contract looks like, what that partnership agreement looks like, and more details about what the actual plan will be.
I would like to see those major events and the approximate dates. We don't need a built out Gantt chart here, but us getting a grip on how this is going to come together, what is needed to make it happen, I think will just create some accountability for us to be able to speak to this
Yeah.
really important project that's been funded with a lot of money
Mhm.
for a long time.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
I will take biochar and the underground tank. So the underground tank was a 10,000 gallon diesel fuel tank that is a backup if all the power goes out at water. Didn't know that 6 months ago. Didn't realize that. Andy in subsequent conversations said they have that tested, the diesel fuel within that every 3 years. It's fine. It's not leaking. Nothing's wrong with it. I've consulted people from my past who pull out underground storage tanks for a living. Said if we don't have to mess with it, we probably shouldn't. It's not leaking. We can,
It's safer not to.
well, it opens up different cans of worms. One,
Yeah.
it's leaking on the outside. Something's happened. Once you start pulling the thread, obviously then you go until you're finished remediating. Two, it's downstream of our site. So any interaction and problem that it would have with biochar and having a 1,500-degree oven next to a diesel tank, that was exactly why we haven't brought you all final site designs yet, because I wanted to make sure those setbacks are correct. So in conversations over the past month, both of those things are true. We should leave the tank in as a even third heating source. We don't use a whole lot of it, but we could if we needed to. We have about 3,000 gallons of diesel fuel in there. We could also leave the tank in place and just pump it completely dry. Take the diesel fuel and use it somewhere else if we didn't need it, or run it through the system.
Need that tank? When's the last time we needed to use it?
Not sure about that, Commissioner. I'll have to ask Andy, but it's got 3,000 gallons of tank and I know he tests the fuel every other year because it gets old. So
You said that was a third line. So the first line, is it electric or gas, or I don't mean line, but use
fallback. It's the second line of defense now. It would be potentially our third line of defense as we use the organic Rankine cycle machine that we're going to do as a part of biochar. So we would still keep it as a redundant source, essentially because it may cost us 10 times more to take it out of the ground and remediate it.
What system is fueled with this diesel fuel?
The boiler system, which heats the building.
Interesting. And if that went out for a couple of days, how problematic would that actually be?
Would be problematic to the plants inside for sure, depending on what the temperature was outside, but
Yeah,
certainly a change in temperature for those plants could take out the entire crop if that would happen.
So that's one step. What we're doing now allows us with this, that's actually one of the pieces that we're going to have mechanically engineered outside of the office, is the interface between the organic Rankine cycle machine, which is our third, it's a heat exchanger, but that's what is used in beyond biochar. That we're also going to have piped into that boiler system. And then, as Jason may talk about later, there's still money at water potentially for campus upgrades. And we're going to assess the whole boiler system and see how to make that more efficient for this very purpose. But yeah, like Jenny said, assume that we use 3 years from now, we're actually where we need to be. And we're doing stuff at Crone. And Mark needs to move all those plants. That's exactly where I believe we would take those. And having that redundant heat source at that point may prove valuable in the middle of a winter where we have cactuses out there, or cacti, I'm sorry, for the first time. So when I heard that and then heard the other options, which are, we could dig into it. We have the capability to take that tank completely out of the ground. But I've been advised by people that do that all the time that we probably shouldn't, knowing that there's no reason to suspect a leak. If we thought that it was leaking 20 gallon, if it was leaking 1 gallon, I would recommend to you pulling that out of the ground. But knowing that we've gauged that and that it's not leaking and it's fine, it's probably way smarter to leave it in. We're also never going to cover it. So we're not going to put anything on top of it. The road will come next to it, but not on it. So if we ever have to take it out of the ground, we're not disrupting infrastructure that we're going to spend a bunch of money designing and grading out. So that's kind of why the tank. As far as your biochar question about how do we get from where we are, that's a great question. I believe the order is this. We need to solidify what we've done in the past 2 months is build a footprint 2D of where and how much clearance we need for augers, machines, the pyrolysis unit, the organic Rankine cycle, all of the big pieces that go inside the shredder, the walking floor that moves the chips into the pyrolysis unit, sized all of that stuff in boxes from the manufacturer. This box needs to be 10 foot by 10 foot by 50 foot long. And that's the space that I need around this. That's pretty much where I start. Do all of that in 2D, take that back to the vendor who's supplying that equipment and ask them if there's enough clearance for everything there. We've done those steps. He then that sizes our building. says how much clearance and how big does that building need to be, which is where we are right now. We think we need a 77-foot by 50-foot building to house everything. Separate everything as we need to for both dust and for sound on the inside. All of that stuff has been done. We sent those prints back to the vendor who Crystal already is working towards a contract and negotiations with for. He is finalizing his pricing for all of that stuff and the conveyors based off of that design. Once we get to that point, we know exactly how big the building is supposed to be and has to be. And we have options for how much we can spend on that building. We can build in a whole new CMU block wall building. We can put up potentially a metal building, many things in between, a hoop house, a metal hoop house. We're looking at all of those right now to decide what's the most efficient way to house that thing at that size. And then that will inform many things beyond that. That will allow us to finish the site. Doug Spreen and his team from DOTE have already all the way out to North Bend Road mapped and cataloged all the property lines and all of the geolocated topographic survey around the building where we're going to disturb this and put in the new building. All of that is already done. So we can go to Springfield Township with real information if we need easements, should we need easements for power and things like that. All of those are already in the works. The critical path is once they bring us back those numbers, we need to commit on our end to put in that building in play at whatever cost those are, which we're trying to gather for you. And hopefully we'll have updated costs. I would say we'll be real close by January and knowing what those costs will be. Again, very similar to Sinton, we're going to have a commitment at some point that we're going to commit another however much that is to biochar beyond the equipment that you already know about from Crystal.
So let's say then by February.
Yep.
We look at a similar simplified budget as you did for Sinton.
Yes, ma'am.
For biochar, and then again, the top points of the big things that need to happen to get this thing to
I didn't hear you,
cutting.
I didn't hear you mention the access road situation. How's that moving?
The very next thing is now that we have the building sited, we have to put in a conditional variance approval with Springfield Township. Essentially, I believe the park is zoned as residential / park, and we're going to do something a little bit different. We've been told by the folks that are on those committees that that's potentially not going to be a big issue. It's not a variance that would require us to do anything industrial, but it's a process we have to go through. We take this design, once we've shown it to you and gotten buy-in on rough order of magnitude costs, we take it to Springfield Township, to the Board of Zoning and Appeals, ensure that where we were laying that site out is proper, and then start talking about those easements. We can draw those in-house and then present those to get that access road. Mrs. Castellini, we're still talking about, we think we're going to go from North Bend Road in the same exact spot as the electric will go at a very minimal disruption to the site, if at all possible, but we're not even sure if that's going to go. We pretty much know we're not going to come from the other side, but we haven't finalized that yet as far as I know, and that's going to be part of that.
So is there still discussion about a new lane coming in from Winton into that site?
So we've talked about a couple of different options with Springfield Township. At the last meeting we had with them, we all were kind of leaning towards the North Bend Road access site that would be potentially a gravel road that would mirror where the electric comes in at. We know that's the site we want to bring the electric in because it's the shortest and therefore the cheapest to bring the electric in. But one of the options is to just use Border as it is. It's a public road. We can use that as our access point. Another that we've talked about that I think we're all starting to lean against is to use the Border Preserve that is on the west side as the access point. Now that it's open and people are loving it, it's harder to then turn that into an access road.
Yeah.
So I think we're all kind of leaning towards exploring the option off of North Bend Road, but those are ongoing conversations with them. And then we've got to work our way through their processes. But so far, they've been great partners to work with, and we're optimistic that that's going to be the best solution.
Well, I think this points up to Molly's point, just summarizing it so we know where we are, because there was even one point where we were talking about swapping land with the township. And I don't know if we're still doing that or if that's off the.
But Commissioner, we had to know the setback. That's the tank. All of that stuff was Paul coming to us say, hey, we had to buy this 4 acres of land beyond what used to be the property line, essentially against the boiler room out at Warder. They bought that 4-acre parcel. The park board did well before my time, obviously, to accommodate that tank. And that's what raised all my cuckles. Like, okay, do we have to have this buffer are we allowed to swap land? How much room do we need off of this existing building to even put biochar here? So we've done all that stuff in conjunction with that site plan that I'm talking about, laid out that we need 15-foot separation from the existing building to the edge of our new building for fire code. And beyond that, how much room inside we need for clearance for our machines. And on the other side, how to navigate the outside of that. We think that is 90 feet off of the existing building, which cuts 75 foot into that 4-acre parcel. So we had to figure all of that out before we can put together the proper zoning stuff to take it before the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Any sort of land swap also was contingent upon what access road we thought was the best path. And so I think as we lean more towards the north end one, what's become apparent is there's no need for any sort of property swap can be future conversations with water preserve. As we see how the new preserve that they've established works, as we see how our production, both of biochar and of other plants and trees at Water Nursery increase and what the needs are, we can always have those as future conversations. But for now, we're just moving down the path of establishing an access road in order to keep the traffic off of Water Road and then getting that electrical there. But again, they've been great to work with and, we want to kind of respect their process as we move through it, but things are coming together.
Timeline wise, I agree. By February at the latest, we should be able to have those numbers for you.
Thank you.
Super.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Joel on any of the topics?
Great work as always.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate all you're
Super.
doing.
Thank you, Joel.
Love your detail orientation.
Exactly. Same to you. Okay, the next item we have is investment committee appointment. Is that right?
Oh, actually, Derek's up, page 61.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right.
It's been at civil service meetings the last couple times, so we get a. it's like
We're
yes,
way back up
yes,
there. I forgot we take these out of order. Okay.
Both function.
I know it's hard to leave this meetings. It's hard to go, but you can't spend all your time at them, can you?
Welcome.
Hi, good morning, commissioners. Believe I got a lot of great updates for you today. One, I just want to say we are laser focused on preparing for part-time hiring next year. So we actually have our first meeting with all the divisions on the 4th, just to ensure that we have leaned out our onboarding process and making sure we can consolidate, because the quicker we get people on, the less people we lose. So I'm going to continue that increase in hires for part-time. So we had over 120% increase in part-time hiring last year. And a lot of that is due to the CV team. They're doing a lot of great marketing. Even with the 5 positions that we have, key updates, the 2 project managers, 2 office managers, and the grant writer, we have over 500, almost 500 applications.
Wow.
And that's definitely tied to the marketing. So thank you, Rocky, and your team. You did a good job. So currently,
Question for you, Derek.
yes, ma'am.
This is unrelated to the parks, but since they are park property, I'm gonna ask. Does the CRC, are they planning to start marketing the lifeguard position soon?
Well, I thought that they already are.
Okay,
I know that they've done a few things in retaining some of the staff. They put together a program where they are able to hire lifeguards who then can have employment throughout the year so that they're already on board
yeah,
going that way. But to your point, there's been a lot of discussion about how to attract more lifeguards for next year.
yeah. Do they market at all the swim clubs?
I don't
for
know
the
that.
winter?
I know you brought that up last year and I
There's
mentioned
so
that to
many
them.
scores. I mean, the Cincinnati Marlins, between their 3 clubs, have 350 swimmers. They're not all 16
Yeah,
and above yet,
yeah.
but it's
That's an excellent
It's
point.
not a big deal to get accredited to be a lifeguard.
right.
It really is not.
It's a very hard job.
It's a hard job,
Okay.
but to get licensed is
Yeah.
not a big deal. I'm trying to talk a granddaughter into doing it right
Well,
now.
and CRC is holding these all the time to get certified. for
Yeah,
lifeguard.
yeah.
So it is an ongoing issue.
The difference between being a CRC lifeguard and being a lifeguard at your swim club is
Right.
a really different job.
Tougher, much.
Much
Oh,
tougher.
much tougher, yeah.
Much tougher.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Question,
not
obviously,
really that informed on what they're doing. I can reach out to Brandy and Tiffany.
Yeah.
Maybe we can collaborate in some way.
it's that part-time help. It's just the difference of 10 pools being open versus say 14 or
Yeah.
even best case 20. It's a big deal for the city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really big deal.
Is the pay any different?
We've actually increased the pay. That was one thing that city council did this past year, so that last season we were able to increase the pay for lifeguards, and they even put in an incentive program. So there was a bonus plan where if you're there for X number of months, you get so much. If you're there through the end of the season,
Right.
you get a little bit more. So they've actually installed that plan as well as a way to attract.
Yeah.
And they did attract this past year significantly more lifeguards than they did from the year before. But that still was not enough to open all of the pools.
Well, you did a great job last year getting the summer help in, and it showed in our parks, and
you.
it would be great if CRC could have as much success.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's great.
I've had some conversation with Tiffany, and I'll try to continue that and see what we can do to kind of work together. We have,
I just one more thing on
Yeah.
this. I know city council increased pay. My guess is that there would be many donors interested in supplementing lifeguard pay.
Hmm.
I am very confident in that. I see Jennifer shaking her head. There'd be some confidence around that, don't you think?
That would be a great project for OC.
Yeah, I can bring that up to the CRC Foundation.
I don't know how that goes in civil service, but I bet that it would be easy to get traction.
I think we used to do that back when I worked for Mayor Mallory a decade ago, or
Yeah, because
a
that's,
decade plus ago. I feel like there were some partners and donors that would come in and would help make sure we kept the last 2 or 3 pools open by supplementing that.
Yeah.
So that does like ring a bell to me. It's been a bit, but
it was Chesley,
Exactly. who it
Stan
was.
Chesley used
Yeah.
to come in every year when we were not gonna open any.
and Mallory were very close. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We would be interested in supporting that. Okay, I'm sorry, not parks related, but really important.
It is.
And it's the season to heighten awareness on it,
Mhm.
make a plan.
we have a couple of promotions and appointments. Joshua Jump, he's been promoted to lead arborist in natural resources. Raymond Cook, he's been promoted to service crew leader. He will be approved next week, on the 21st in civil service. Charles Bolt, I hope I'm saying that right. He'll be a laborer in the east. Melissa Solowski, a laborer in the west, and Frederick Veith will be a laborer in the east. All 3 of these people were MW, so part-time employees. They'll now be having full-time employment with the city.
Great.
So I'm very excited about that.
Absolutely.
And since I sent this memo out, we have 2 additions. We have an accepted offer for Jason's project manager.
Yay.
And we'll have more updates. So maybe she'll be here next.
Well,
Yeah, we'll have more updates in regard to that person, that position. We have Mark Hand, who has accepted the tree maintenance worker also. Currently, we're doing a lot of interviewing. Obviously, we're preparing for interviews for the CFO, and I will be providing Jason with a lot of information on what I would recommend the interview process look like. Obviously, we would like your feedback, your involvement on that process, but that posting is closed, so I'd like to get your feedback. So this week, I'll have all the applications and my preliminary review done to Jason.
Super.
And grant writer also, that will be next week. Pretty quickly with that position as well. Obviously, it's taken over a year to get that filled, so I'm happy to get that off the books. We have a couple of transfers. Julie Cole is going to the east and Sarah Massey is going to the east from the west. That means there'll be 2 additional openings for their vacancies and we'll be filling those. Currently, the florist, we have a lot of vacancies in that florist position. And we're working on the examination. We sent out a questionnaire for florists to kind of get feedback on that. And once that's approved, the new exam by civil service will be filling that relatively quickly. So there are a lot of rec specs who have that horticultural background who would like to transition into that. And it'll open up some additional vacancies when they move out. Excited about that. The opportunity for people to get some full-time positions.
Super.
Overall, we have about 21, it'll be getting down to 18 vacancies. But this will continue to fluctuate as we fill and promote. I'm trying to get it down to that 14 mark, kind of like how we were last year or earlier this year.
There'll always be some vacancies, but
Oh,
the vacancies are some of the new positions we've added over the last year. Between the budget, we were able to add positions, and with some of the commissioner fund dollars, we donated, or we allocated towards positions in August, we've really been able to increase the staffing, which is really, I think we're seeing it around the parks, and I know that the team seems to be feeling the help and is glad to have it, so.
It wasn't long ago before I remember we had 30, we would have 30 vacancies. So you guys have done a great job. And hopefully the market's helping a little bit too, but it's great work.
And now that we're tightening up on like appointments and promotions and our hiring process in general, we kind of are trying to put some of our efforts to employee engagement. Now that we have solidified our leadership, a lot of our managers are here, we have more staff. Now we're trying to reconnect with staff. So we actually have Sarah Moskovitz, I hope I'm saying it right, and on the CV team helping us. She sent out a survey. We're gonna have some initiatives. I think I mentioned that at a previous meeting a while ago, but now we're coming to a point where we can now start really connecting with staff. And
So that was a staff survey that was done. That's great to hear.
Yeah.
It's great to hear.
You can really see Derek's team was fully staffed up over the summer, and you're really starting to see the effects of that as things are moving quickly. Derek's able to focus on the higher level stuff. Interviews are going quicker. Everything's just finally back to really cooking.
like Sherry Cottingham, our HR analyst, she's taking the lead on our Parks Academy. So we're trying to re-get that going and make sure that all of our employees are getting the appropriate safety training during the winter and early in the season so that we don't have any injuries. We kind of lower those amount of injuries that we have.
That's great.
That is good. Make sure you keep that in front. Making sure staff, knowing how the staff feels, making sure that we are promoting staff and giving them opportunities, and you've got some great initiatives. Yeah.
Thank you, Derek.
Any other questions for Derek? Super.
Thank you.
This is a much more fun meeting than a civil service meeting, isn't it? We don't have flowers like this at the civil service, I'm sure. Okay, thank you. Well, we're moving into action items. We've already dealt with A, B, number C. I'm proposing that we appoint Dan Lugers. You have his resume, a short resume here. I've known Dan for quite a while. Xavier graduate, and he has participated in other cities services. He was on the internal audit committee with me for a number of years. He's a Cincinnati resident and is very interested in helping us. As you are aware, Kevin Flynn stepped off the board recently, off the committee recently. And I'd just like to get a few more people on that committee. So I would like to propose that we appoint Dan to the investment committee.
So moved.
So
Second.
I'll move. Okay, move second. All those in favor? All right, thank you. We talked about the investment committee at the last meeting. It's a group of people that are really dedicated to helping parks, and glad to have him and his background on the committee. Okay, now we'll move to Jason. You've got foundation grants. Oh,
Excellent. So we're joined by our friends, Jen and Lindsay from the foundation, always helping us with lots of different things. Today, we've got 5 donations that we're asking acceptance of. One is for busing for Explore Nature to make sure we get folks from schools to explore nature, camps, and educational events. Then the scholarship for Explore Nature camps. And then we've got the Flower Pot program in our neighborhoods of O'Brienville, Hyde Park, Mount Lookout, Grandin, and Torrance. The Corona Holiday Show, continues to, as we talked about already, with the addition of the Freedom Center sculpture this year, but they always support that. And then last is almost $10,000 to help us with some invasive species removal in Caldwell Park. So all great initiatives that are helping lots of things happen throughout the park system.
Excellent.
these are all great. The Flower Pot program, where do we stand with that? You had talked about before, are we?
Correct. So Crystal and her team have done a great job of digging in on what the budget was. It's another thing that dates back to my days working in the mayor's office over a decade ago. But the Flower Pot program historically had been a 50-50 split. Assuming the cost per flower pot was about $400, and it was a 50-50 split between the community and what the city funded. A long time ago, that was like a specific line item allocation of the budget. I don't think that is that anymore, but we've still tried to honor that $200 a flower pot for the community. This year, Crystal and her team did an analysis of what does it really cost us to take care of a flower pot. And it was over $600. And so we made the decision this year to increase the flower pot program for the cost for the neighborhoods by about $130. I think that's the right number per flower pot. This was in conversations with them. The letters went out notifying them of that change in November, because they then apply for grant funding from the city that often covers their side of it. So our expectation is that we'll be close to doing just as many flower pots as before, but also by increasing this, we'll be able to bring in more money, which will allow us to hopefully potentially even do more neighborhoods in the future. So
is this money that's coming in from the community?
for their side of it, correct? That's my understanding.
So the flower pot program here is what's coming in from the,
That's my understanding, yeah.
okay. Great. Any other questions on this?
I have one question about Crone, Jennifer. Is that one donor that comes forward and does that?
Typically, Scherzinger's a big part of it, mostly every year.
Wow, that's wonderful.
And the guy from Scherzinger just joined the foundation's executive board. Yep. So, yeah, really great partners.
It's like the other foundation supporter.
Super. Super. I don't think there's any question that we will be very, very happy to, but can I have a motion to approve acceptance of these gifts? And is there a second? A motion to second? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Thank you again to the foundation for this continued support. Now we're going to Ezra Charles Park easement, Jason.
So this one is, has been something we've been negotiating for a bit, and we're joined by Ali Triunfo, who represents the church in question. So formerly, or Ezra Charles Park, formerly Laurel Park on Ezra Charles Drive, the park itself is what we think of as kind of the semicircle. It's where the statue went in last year, but it also includes a strip of land just north of the right of way that creates that boulevard sense from Music Hall all the way down to the highway and then eventually Museum Center. From Ezra Charles to this church property, there is a driveway that has existed for as long as anybody I've talked to can remember. And then there is a piece of property just north of our property. There's both the church and then there's this adjoining property that's just green space. And I think it's been for sale and marketed for a while. Recently, the port has entered into an agreement with the church to purchase that property to be then repurposed into some housing in the West End, which achieves a lot of the city goals, achieves a lot of the port's goals. And so, but as part of that, their official access to their site, which is a driveway on the north piece of that property, will go away. And with that means they need, it's a law that every piece of property must have access to the right of way. So they need to make official the easement, the driveway they have with an easement that will allow them to access that church. We've been back and forth in the negotiations of it, but the conditions of the easement are the property must remain either a church, residential, nonprofit use, or educational use, or religious use, of course. But if it wants to be changed to any use outside of that, commercial, industrial, anything else, they would need to come to the park board to ask permission for that. And so we would be engaged in that process. Again, we think this is a good outcome. It protects the church's interests. It allows the port to acquire that property, and it allows ultimately the city to try to get some more housing into the West End.
So it's an existing easement that's, well, it's not an easement.
Road, yeah.
Existing road, not an easement, but this formalizes their right to use that as to get to the church.
And I should note that the fair market value of the easement is $10,000, which we'll receive as part of this process.
Are there any questions on this? This is a piece of property we've talked about this before. There was at one point potential convenience store going on a corner, and at that time we were not very inclined to support a convenience store. But this is just providing the easement, and I'm glad to hear We've worked through with them the conditions so that if it ever was going to revert to or become a convenience store, it would come back before us to reevaluate that. Any other questions?
No.
Can I have a motion then, please,
So moved.
Second.
and a second, a motion and a second to approve the easement. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Ally. Sure. This was Mr. Caudry's property, I assume. Yeah. The next thing we've got is the Sanaville Triangle parking lot. We talked about this last month, but tabled it and Jason.
Lucinda Triangle is a piece of park property that we own, but the Recreation Commission manages for us. There are 7 tennis courts there, kind of right at the intersection of Reading, Burnett, and William Howard Taft. It gets a tremendous amount of traffic on those roads. So there's not a lot of parking in the area, which is, according to the Recreation Commission, has led to people parking in the grass there and kind of making their own parking, or has led to people to have to cross the street and park kind of on side streets and other areas, and then crossing the street in that busy area. They would like to will design and build a parking lot in this area of about the size of the parking lot that is at Inwood Park that's recently been constructed. It would be, I believe, as you can see in the drawings, it would be about 10 spots, with one of them being handicap accessible. And it would just allow, folks to park there and cause hopefully a little bit safer environment for everybody. Since it's a park property, we need to approve kind of a change of use for this before they want to go down and kind of spend a bunch of money getting it designed and working with a bunch of architects. So that's where we're at with the process. Staff's looked at it. We feel like this is a good change and would serve the community and the tennis players well. So we're happy to support the Recreation Commission.
Any questions on this one? This one's pretty straightforward. There's no large trees.
Correct. This is
either.
No.
Yep.
This is great. If not, I'll move that we approve this. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
I have one question.
Go ahead.
On effective proof. Can you post signs that allow people only to park for 2 hours or less or something like that?
Yeah.
I just know we've had campers in the Inwood lot.
No
They're
problem.
gonna become the.
Yeah, that Inwood lot has
that to the Recreation.
a parking lot for the building across the street,
Right,
basically.
right.
Yeah. We can definitely
Yeah,
propose that to Recreation, and we can look at posting signs at Inwood as well.
it may not
That's a
be a
good
problem
point.
here, but
Yep. Okay, Jason, the skate park.
So the second piece is the skate park in Camp Washington. Same situation, park owns this land. It used to be a rec center. A while back that was decommissioned and it became a police substation in the pink in this drawing. Recreation still manages the rest of the park. In the lead up to the budget last year, the advocates for the skate park mobilized well, and they were at city council meetings, they were at budget meetings, and they convinced city council to proceed with $500,000 of funding to construct a skate park somewhere in Cincinnati. Those individuals worked with the at that time, I spoke to the Recreation Commission and they volunteered to be the hosts of that skate park. We were obviously very, very busy with a lot of things, and Joel and I didn't have any spot in mind that we could do it quickly, but they were ready to take it on and move rather quickly. So we were happy to let them kind of be the leaders on that. Working with the skate community, the skate park advocates, they selected the site. Commissioner North, you had some questions about that last time, and President Getz might have some more information from talking to the staff at CRC. But I did have Evan, who is the president of the skate advocates, reach out to me, and he said they were very involved. They're very happy with the site and the selection of the site. They, of course, agree with you that we should have skate parks everywhere and we should have more of them. But they're very excited about this one being the first one, and they were fully involved in that, and they're wholly supportive. In fact, they were like, please don't mess this up. And I was like, no, we're just asking questions.
I don't want to mess with that.
But they were very excited about it and again, fully supportive of it. So.
Yeah, and I raised those questions. This was brought up at the CRC board meeting after hours. They did look at several other CRC sites. I asked about parking. I wasn't sure there was enough parking. They assured me that they had looked at that and there was plenty of parking.
This is the parking along the side here.
Yeah, most of it's on the street too. There's a lot more parking on the streets. But again, the CRC board approved this. They do need our approval since it's legally our property. But they said that they had done a lot of work, and if you'll recall, Evan actually came here and addressed us
Right.
as well, looking for support for a skate park. So, my gut feel is that whether we totally support this or not, it was vetted by CRC. It'll be a CRC, and they have the support of the skate park people who will be doing it. So I would advocate that we, as a perfunctory, since it's just a matter of, since it's our property that we agree to, I would hate to second guess CRC on this one.
I think it belongs with them.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
It's an active park, like a playground or a basketball court or other things. So I do believe it fits right with what they do.
No argument from me.
Any other questions?
Did you get any answers about the security concern?
I asked that question. They don't have plans at this point for a camera. But they said that they think that the location of this would also with the police substation there, they felt like it would be a very visible site. So I will entertain if we're in agreement, approval of the request that we approve their use of this property.
So moved.
And second, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Maybe
Well-
someday that sad and will be very populated,
Yeah.
very sad.
Okay, Jason, you're up with your capital budget 2025.
It's in the packet, but then I also printed out some larger copies for you. My eyes prefer the larger copies. There are two documents in front of you, and so we talked about this a little bit ago. This is our piece. We recommend a budget that goes to how we would use our infrastructure and rehabilitation dollars. We get a set amount from the administration. We then recommend how we would use that, and then that will then start the budget process and it will work its way through. And there are two pieces of this. There is what would we do with our infrastructure and rehabilitation dollars, which is about 2.7 million. And then what is our capital exemption list, which then allows them to select projects to potentially fund on a project basis. There are two documents here. One is what we approved last year because the city works on a biennium budget. So they pass a 2-year budget, but then a year later, because of revenue and expenses, we pass an update to it. And so we're at the update portion of that. So last year we approved the document that is entitled Approved 1222. And then this year we are doing an update, and this is how we were proposed using it. As we talked about earlier, last year, I was about 4 months in. I think it was the first time Joel had been through a capital budget process. So we had a plan that kind of diversified our funding and put it in a lot of pots. Having been through a whole year, we now know that the Senton project's ready to go, and we are trying to amass all of the dollars that we can into that project. So what you'll see on the draft document, which is really what we're considering, we're proposing holding some dollars in reserve it was allocated for Ludlow/Deal Road, holding those dollars as we learn what we're doing with biochar, as we learn what it takes to move the green space team to Warder, and as we start to learn about some of the preliminary needs at Warder's campus as we start to increase production. But we're going to move the dollars from the West Region planning, both in FY24 and FY25 and FY24 and FY25 towards Senton, which gets us to about $2.2 million total dollars for Senton. We're also going to leave about $750,000 in contingency. Originally, we had just put aside $100,000, $150,000 of contingency. But as you note, Joel's team is moving quickly and we're doing deferred maintenance and taking care of stuff everywhere. So whether it is replacing water lines that we know about, or whether it's sinkholes in Washington Park, we wanted to make sure we reserved a robust amount so that even though we're spending down dollars from FY23, we'll have plenty of that in FY 25 to work through those projects. So happy to answer any questions about that, but that's the kind of broad strokes of it. Is over the 2 years, we'll maintain the Washington Park project. We'll move most of the dollars towards Centon. We'll maintain a balance towards kind of water and biochar, green space, kind of all of that as we finish moving Crystal's team around. And then we'll reserve that $750,000 as contingency to be used on all kinds of maintenance and capital repair projects at a smaller level. And then as you look at the exemptions list, which is this 3-page document that has, I believe it's 10 projects on it, 12 projects. These are all projects that you will see on our 3-year forecast. They're put into a rank, and we meet periodically every 2 or 3 months, and projects always get re-ranked a little bit. Currently, the ranking is that the number 1 project is Centon, as we've discussed. If we get that additional $1.5 million, that will fully fund that project with the solar panels or with the site conditions and everything. And then the number 2 project is the solar panels. We think City Council will be very interested in the solar panels, and we think we can get some funding for that. Additionally, we think that there will be, we might be able to use the, I always blank on the name of it, but basically the Recovery Act dollars that are encouraging these kind of projects, both for biochar and for these solar panels. So we think we'll be able to get some money back for that. But we're kind of leaving it as 2 projects, hoping City Council might see the wisdom in funding both of them. And then the next project up is one that's near and dear to our hearts right now, which is McAvoy Park, where there's still a lot of crime problems and that needs a pretty severe road diet, new playground, some lighting. And that's kind of our first unfunded park project that is next on our list. And then after that, you can see we've park-wide lighting and safety stuff. There's a lot of smaller projects we could do if we had some funding. Bellevue stabilization is another one that we haven't dug into yet, but we know it's a really serious one. We actually took City Council there on a tour of parks and rec and health facilities. That was one of the spots we stopped at. And then you can kind of see Mount Airy operations renovation. Again, all projects that are on our schedule of work and we will need to fund over the next several years.
Okay. It's a very visible picture.
We're trying to increase visibility, increase kind of these conversations in advance, you know. All these, this is the plan for them, but as we talked about earlier, as we move towards summer and the City Council passes it, these will be dollars that we'll be able to have discussions about. How do we want to allocate them? Do funding priorities change? Does something come up?
So if somebody walks in the front door and wants to know what's going on here, is this at the front desk?
I was just talking to Rocky about your suggestion this morning, but I think that absolutely we can have both the 3-year forecast and the plan of work and these things all available for folks. And so anybody that asks about it, it gives Rocky's team a tool. As we get a lot of communications, it's like, hey, why don't you do this? Hey, why don't you do that? And in the past, we would say, we're busy. But now we're able to say, here is what we're doing that we're busy. And so we've really tried to increase. Early days, Joel was printing off large sheets of individual projects with the project tracker.
Yeah.
What we've done over the last year or so and when I say we, mostly Joel and formerly Craig and Rocky's team, to really put our arms around this and try to be as publicly available to what our planning process is. These conversations, like, you know, I showed you guys this last month, which I was really excited to be able to give kind of a month of anybody can provide feedback, anybody can ask questions, anybody can be critical of the plan we've put forward. We're trying to just increase the visibility on all of that so that it's just really evident kind of where we want to go and how we're going to get there.
Transparency around priorities
Exactly.
helps everybody work together. It's great.
Great.
What a team.
I feel like that was stuff that you guys talked to me about in the interview process. It was things that you guys were trying to get better at, things you guys wanted to see the department make steps in. And again, our team's just been crushing it.
True.
I'm happy to
Organize
see
the
the
chaos.
safety
Should
issues.
have an allergic reaction to the penicillin, and I need to go blow my nose.
Okay, here you go.
Thank you very much.
I'll be back.
Sorry, just said she's having an allergic reaction.
I
Poinsettia.
just need to go blow my nose. I'll be back.
Noted for next.
Yes, definitely know.
The hour-and-a-half meeting spot is a good bathroom break time anyways.
No, what's going on, Phyllis? We're gonna have to take charge here. We still have a quorum, Phyllis. Please go ahead. What were you gonna say about safety?
No, I was just saying that I was happy to see that the safety concerns are like the top of, near the top of the priority list, because I think that's something that we really need to address and to keep a focus on that.
I agree.
As Joel and I have been talking about how that would work too, one of the interesting things about that is that if we were to, we put $1 million as kind of a placeholder I'm sorry, $1.5 million as a placeholder amount on there. We could spend that quickly with, but it would also be individual projects, which would allow Joel to activate different team members to handle different smaller projects. We can go out and get a couple quotes, work with Andy's team and the facilities in order to enact different individual projects around the park system. So hopefully we'd be able to move pretty quickly if we were to get that funding.
Are the talks with CPD continuing?
They are. In fact, I was just at a Banks Community Authority meeting recently where they were already planning for some of the Banks and Smale Park obviously had a lot of heat last summer, and we're already talking through kind of what those plans are to be ready to make sure that we are ready to go as the weather changes this spring. We've also had some conversations with the Parks Foundation about potentially funding some additional security patrols at Smale Park. And so that's something we're definitely going to continue to talk to them about and try to have ready to go so that it doesn't heat up. We keep it cool from the beginning. Also, as we talk about police, I can brag about our team. We've made some great strides working with the city manager's office and the police department on addressing various homeless encampments throughout the park system. There's been a lot of discussion about that, both at our riverfront parks, but then also the Clifton Town meeting had some discussions about some perceived homelessness issues in Burnett Woods. North side issues as well. The city manager's office has taken a really creative and compassionate view of this. They've hired, to my knowledge, one of the first kind of people solely in charge of outreach and addressing homelessness issues from a non-police enforcement standpoint. Fantastic woman named Brooke Lipscomb, who's got a very long career with Greater Cincinnati Behavioral Health. Has come over to the city department. She's actually met with, I think, 3 or 4 different of our operations teams now to give them an additional resources that they can use when they come across homeless encampments or individuals that are even camping out during the day in the park. In the past, they would call the police and the police would, person on a bench or person asleep in a park, is ranked like as all other reports to the police. But now we're also able to contact Brooke and the city manager's office. And then Brooke has lots of individuals or lots of different organizations that she can bring to bear to bring outreach and attention to folks. So just this week, later today, she's meeting with some folks, our new district crew leader out of Sinton to go out to Burnett Woods where there has been a tent identified, and we're going to have them kind of go out, try to talk to the individual, try to give them some services and get them connected to housing opportunities. Down at Smale Riverfront Park, where we'd had a ton of problems with people camping out, either by the carousel or kind of by Anderson Pavilion or underneath the bridge. We did a really intensive effort. We met there at 6 a.m. a couple times. And then for like a week, the police and outreach workers came every day and were like, hey, we want to help. We want to help. Hey, can we get you into services? And some people want to get services. Some people don't. You kind of have to meet an individual at the right time for that. But then after a week or so of that, starting on a Monday, the police officer went and was like, on Wednesday, we're going to start issuing tickets. And the next day, on Wednesday, we're going to start issuing tickets. And then on Wednesday, there were only 3 or 4 individuals down there, and they were all new faces. Everybody that had been down there for weeks at a time had moved on. So we really saw that as a successful partnership to try to be as compassionate as we can be in order to extend the olive branch and try to get folks the help they need, but also not let things fester and not let them stand long. So we're trying to hit that right balance of enforcing and saying, look, you can't sleep in the parks, but we're going to try to get you into services you need first. So the team's just done a really good job with that. And the city manager's office and the attention they've between the police department and the outreach team has been really great.
Thank you. It's an issue.
And I filibustered for long enough to allow the president to get back.
Nice job.
Mr. President, I believe I answered all questions that came up while you were gone about the capital budget. We also talked about safety and security and some other initiatives we got going on. So I'm happy to answer any more questions or respectfully request.
Asked this before you can tell me later, but does this, when you talk about safety, are we talking about any camera systems throughout the? Okay.
Correct. It could be camera systems, it could be lights, it could be all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Thank you. So have we taken action on this yet?
We have not,
Okay.
we waited for you and
Oh,
we
okay,
let
sorry.
Jason talk while you were gone the whole time.
Sorry. Are
That's
there,
great.
so we're going to, there's two items. You want us to approve the submission of this, right? With, and the exception.
Correct. So it would be the plan for the capital budget for FY 25. And then it would be the list of exceptions.
Exceptions, great. And we are theoretically asking for all the exceptions, and that's where they go through and
Correct. Yep.
and how much is available. Okay. Are everybody else comfortable with questions? If so, can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very clear. I didn't have questions, so I don't mind. I had an emergency I had to deal with, but thank you. Sure.
Thank you. And then this is the next item up is the 3-year forecast and the plan of work. Admittedly, the plan of work was a late addition. I was up late getting this all typed up. It follows the same format of last year, which is there shouldn't be anything that's a surprise on here. It's all just the discussion of, it's actually the last stapled piece of paper there in mine. But it basically just puts a couple of sentences to each one of these projects that have color on them on the 3-year plan for the 3-year forecast. And the 3-year forecast, as we discussed last month, is an effort to, all of these projects are projects we talk about month in, month out at various levels. They appear on Joel's reports. There are things that we've prioritized. Some of them we have funding for, some of them we do not, but they're the things that we're putting together this plan so we can kind of have some visibility into what stage are we on of each piece of it as we move forward. This isn't any sort of binding document. Rather, it's basically the park board saying, the park staff and the park board saying, this is what we're working on and this is about what we think it's going to look like. So we can, again, have transparency into where are we at each stage of things and where do we expect to be at what time. So as projects come on board, like if we were to get money for McAvoy Park, which currently is on the list but doesn't have any color next to it, it would then move up and start to be added to the sheet into the color. If the park board of commissioners were to decide that you guys wanted to do a skate park on our own, we would then add that to the list and that would then slowly move up the list as it moved through design and then bidding and construction. A really exciting thing to note is just the top, about 6 or 7 lines all the way down through Fleshman Gardens are all projects that we expect to have completed in the early part of 2024. And so then we'll the red slowly moves from left to right as the construction projects left to right and top to bottom as we slowly progress on projects and move them towards completion. And then new projects will come up in the bottom.
Any movement on the transfer of lot 23?
Yes, so the documents are being written up, is my understanding. The last piece of that was we are going to receive about 10,000 square feet of storage and parking below lot 28 as part of this, including one already complete kind of block room. I mean, it's not like a cushy office, but it's storage space. Jenny's team, Joel's team, and I have been down there a couple of times to tour it and approve the plans for it. We'll actually be able to park our vehicles in there and we'll turn off before the parking entrances. So currently we park a couple of vehicles in those garages, but we have to have parking passes for it. Some of them are grandfathered in, some of them we pay for. We pay for another 5 or 6 in order to get all of our vehicles in. But now we'll have our own parking, we'll have our own staging area. Currently, if we want to get mulch delivered or if we want to stage any sort of operations and maintenance activities, we stage them out of Sawyer Point, which means you're driving golf course back and forth all that distance. And it's not ridiculous, but that's a long way to go. So this new maintenance and operational area is going to be just, and when I first told staff we were getting it, they were like, we'll see. So I guess we're still at the we'll see part, but that's been agreed to. And at this point, the city and the county are just finishing up the paperwork.
So that storage space, then that's the last amount that they owed us, so to speak, okay, great, great.
And I mean, as part of that, we're even the storage space that's up on that second level with the stage, we're getting a double door there, which is going to help our facilities team store better stuff there and be able to access it a little better. And that's been happening.
Great.
And then I should point out that as we talk about lot 23 and moving forward with those enhancements, the property transfer has to happen first before we would start to bid that stuff out to make sure that we were fully in control, but before we started to construct those improvements. Yeah.
And how close do you think we are there?
The last I talked to the person at the county about it, they said that the lawyers were drawing them up. So you never know, but hopefully we'll have some good updates in the beginning of the year. I'm still confident we can bid that out in the first quarter of.
I think our lawyer is listening to this. I'd like to hear from him.
Unfortunately, it's the city and county often will decide who does the work. My understanding is the county lawyers are drawing up the documents. So we are waiting for them to draw them up.
Okay.
If you know anybody over there that you can.
Kevin, they're not on your desk, correct?
Yeah, I just don't have anything to do with that. I know the attorneys that do though. And so I will contact them and see if they can give me an update that I can share.
Thanks.
Great, thank you, Kevin.
I have an itch that really needs scratching. It's driven me nuts.
Any questions, comments for Jason? Jason, this is very straightforward. I tell you, when you marry this to this, we are light years into being able to effectively manage these things.
It was interesting to look at last year's plan of work and this year's and see how naive I was as I typed up last year's hopes and dreams. But next year, I'm sure will be the same, but we're going to keep trying.
The work is never done.
Exactly.
You know, I would like to go ahead and I will make a motion that we approve this, just so Jason has it, and we're all on record saying, yes, we've looked at this, we agree, this is what we're looking to have Jason and his staff work towards next year. So I'll make that motion.
Second.
And second by Commissioner McCollum. All those in favor say aye.
Hi,
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm gonna get out of here.
You are? Okay.
Falling apart.
Yeah,
Hey, Susie, thank you.
Thank you for,
Merry Christmas. Thank you so much. And thank you for the kind gifts.
I'm getting out.
thank you.
Thank you.
This is getting worse.
Uh-oh, thank you.
Oh, well, I've learned something. huh?
I think
Yeah.
last year we had about a half a poinsettias in here.
I was amazed when I saw how
This year,
Yes.
we've got a
yeah.
lot.
our team was trying to impress you. We will.
It's gorgeous.
Okay, we'll move to director's comments. So Jason, you got the floor again.
So I'll try to be quick. We just had the Employee of the Year ceremony. So the city manager organizes an Employee of the Year ceremony for every one of the divisions. And we were excited to award Gerard Gray, Employee of the Year. Gerard Gray is a service crew leader out of Mount Echo Park Operations Center. And he's just an outstanding guy who has been with us for 18 years. Really gets a lot of respect from the community and from his team. His whole team came down to award him. It was really fun. We surprised him, so he thought he was there for a hearing test. Jenny and I got in there. I turned around and I was like,
A hearing check.
"How you doing?" And it was right as the city manager welcome to talk, and I go, "Just so you know, you're about to become the Parks Employee of the Year. Congratulations!" And he was like, "What? How about that? What? What?" And then she started talking, so it was really great. But he's just really great guy and great part of our team. MLK Day, National Day of Service is coming up in January. Special thanks to Al Nair Inc., who once again are leading the way, supplying 120 volunteers for MLK Day. We have projects in McAvoy, Bellevue, Alms Park, Kennedy Heights, Hopkins, Sycamore Hill, Pyatt, Burnett Woods, and California Woods. So just lots of great folks. Explore Nature winter camps are open. We've got Blizzard Blast, we've got Dungeons and Dragons, Ice Age, Over and Under the Snow, and Outdoor Winter Survivor Camp. So all of those sound like I wish I was eligible for them. Of course, Golden Days of Yule is the title of the Crone show right now. We've talked about that a lot. It's got the new 55-inch Underground Railroad Freedom Center sculpture. As you can see, it's just, again, I'm blown away what they're able to do with our partners at Applied Imagination. We've already hit $200,000 in revenue. And revenue is kind of not the way we really want to look at it. We wish we were able to count visitors. Unfortunately, the current system, it just counts revenue. We are about to finish the switch over to Rec Track, which will allow us to do a lot of better accounting of attendance and stuff like that. So we're looking forward to that. Not that revenue is not important, but it's more about how many bodies do we get in the door.
And who internally is managing, installing and
So we've got a lot of folks that are managing that. That was obviously a project that Craig was heading up, but now he's passed that on to Ray, who is filling in for Craig as we look for the next CFO. But Kelly's also been part of that and getting trained on it in order to integrate it into our website and other things. And then we get training for the folks at Crone and other spots.
and what modules are we using of RecTrek?
Oh, I'm not aware of the modules,
Yeah.
documents, instructions.
Yeah, and then Dom on our IT team is also.
I mean, what are the functions then? I'll be able to tell.
Ticket and program sales, they're also looking at point of sales for gift shop. And then addition of passes, and the river park might also start using this as well.
Okay, so we're not using it for reservations or anything like that?
Reservations are on the to
Premier.
do, but
Okay.
they are probably in the third or fourth phase if we switch over from our current program.
It's a great product for use for CRC really likes it and it's provided so much more information. That's great, yeah.
Jason, I got one if you don't mind.
Mhm.
Just a plug for Ray. He's done a phenomenal job. Craig did a lot of stuff, as everybody knows here. And Matt DeBoda asked a whole lot of hard questions and he's jumped right in and has helped us every step of the way to keep a lot of these delivery orders and purchase orders moving in the absence of the CFO. So thank you to Ray for all the help he's given Mike.
Great.
And then just real quick,
Rec Track. Right now, we use a system called Reg Fox. The new procurement, we're going to be switching everything we use to register, especially anything that involves payment over to Rec Track. The first one is the big one, which is from get them switched over. And over the coming year, we will move everything else over. We like relief trees, selling permits for all that other stuff that we do. That's why we're involved to help the different divisions take that. But Crone is first. We're hoping that through that we'll work out all the kinks. We've heard nothing but good things about RepTrack. And we hope to, as we do that, make it as customer service friendly and easy as possible as we can.
Great.
well, I'll finish up with just a couple of events and then try to get us out under 2 hours. Always a goal. So the Chris Kringle Market at Moorline Lager House has been amazing. It's doing really well. And we understand that it's just brought a lot of folks down there. Anybody who's not got a chance to ride the ice slide, giggle at me all you want to, but it is actually pretty fun. And it's really worthwhile. It's been a great new attraction that I think's brought a lot of energy down there and helped the vendors and the restaurant. It was mentioned before, but on Saturday, December 23rd, the annual Audubon Christmas bird count is this Saturday, December 23rd and Saturday, December 30th. You can check out more information on our website. All kinds of folks participate. The mayor and city council are inaugurated on January 2nd at 11 a.m. at Music Hall in the ballroom. Super important. Maple 101, our Friends to Explore Nature, have organized a number of events designed to promote opportunities to visit a park this winter. And on January 13th at 1 p.m. at Caldwell Nature Center, they're holding this free event to teach us all about how maple syrup is made. So another fun one. And then last, I mentioned it earlier, but we are going to cut the ribbon on the Department of Natural Resources headquarters on February 16th. So that will be another great event, 10:30 a.m. We're also going to have some kind of a luncheon that our friends at the foundation are helping us with for the construction contractor and all the people that worked on it. And we think we have the mayor committed to be there as well to help us cut the ribbon. Mayors are always great at ribbon cutting, scissors, skill. So exciting stuff happening.
Great. Any questions for Jason? A lot going on.
As always.
And I'll open up to any discussion, any comments, anything any of the commissioners would like to bring forward.
Everybody's excited about that 2-hour threshold.
Yeah. Well, then I just want to end up by saying thank you to the staff, all of the work. You know, we've got a lot of different calendars that we operate on in the parks, and it's budget calendars and fiscal calendars with the city. Now we're approaching a actual calendar year, scheduling, whatever. But it's a good time at the end of the year to just thank all the employees. You are doing such amazing work right now. I mean, the team that Jason, that you have built and the contributions of everybody here, it's a pleasure being on the Park Board of Commissioners because of the work that you all are doing. It makes it well worthwhile. And what you do for the community, we talked about Crone, but just all of the parks, whether it's maple syrup and doing some great things at Caldwell or out at the Washington Nature Center. Great things going on, always exciting things in our parks. So thank you. Jason, thank you for a year of leadership with this. And to everybody listening today online, get out and enjoy a Cincinnati park because there's a lot of beautiful things in Cincinnati parks. And with that, take time over the next, take time over the next few weeks to enjoy the holiday season, spend time with your families, with friends, recoup, relax, and really all of you celebrate what's been done at parks this year because it's great. I want to thank all of our commissioners too. The time and energy that you put in as volunteers is very much appreciated. And we really appreciate the time and your input. So enjoy your time as well here at the end of the year. And if there's nothing else, then I am going to call this meeting to close and adjourn for
Jim, we appreciate you.
2023.